Jai Hind everyone. I, Swarna Muzumdar, Assistant Professor in Electronics and Communication Department of Ajay Kumar Garg Engineering College, welcomes you on a lecture on microprocessor evolution and its type. Before this lecture, we had covered about the different types of logic gates which will be using to design this microprocessor. We had also discussed about the working of microprocessor, that how microprocessor is going to be work, like what are the instructions, what are the operations that microprocessor is performing. Now, in this particular lecture, I am going to cover about the evolution of microprocessor and its type, and also I am going to discuss about the instruction, the addressing modes and data transfer scheme, as well as the timing diagram associated with microprocessor. So, this is the outline for this lecture. First of all, I will cover about the microprocessor evolution. So, evolution is what we can say, it is it was first started, or we can say the first microprocessor is started from 1970s. The evolution is taken place after the invention of transistors in the electronics devices. But before that also the microprocessors are there with vacuum tubes. It is made up of vacuum tubes, but it is of a big or huge we can say setup it was there, and but it was helpful for calculations and all that things. So, evolution is far earlier, but when it is for commercial purpose or for general use, it is from 1970s. So, here I am going to discuss about the evolution on the basis of generation, technology, how the change in technology evolves a new microprocessor, the timeline, or we can say the year or the date when first processor was invented, the processor name, name given to that processor, the number of transistors used to design that processor, then its speed of working, means how fast it is working. We can say it is the frequency, or you can say the number of instructions it is executed per second, that is the speed of the processor, and the data length. Data length will give us the way that how many number of bits at a time it can process, the processor will process. So, in this evolution, the first one is in 1971, the timeline is 1971. We call it as first generation microprocessor, as it uses the technology PMOS technology. Okay, sorry, it uses the PMOS technology. I will just take the pen. Okay. So, it uses PMOS technology, and this processor is developed by a company Intel. There are many more companies, Motorola and others, ARM and other big microcontroller and processors are there, but right now I am discussing about the Intel processors only, because in our syllabus also we are having Intel processor, we have to study in detail, and these are the base, or we can say the Intel is the company which is having its setup, or you can say the command over this industry microprocessor inventions. So, Intel 4004, this is the first microprocessor invented or came into picture in 1971. It is a 4-bit processor, means this processor will process a 4-bit data at a time. Whatever the operation, whether it is addition or subtraction or any operation, it will perform on 4-bit data itself. Okay. And the speed was 108 kilohertz, very slow. Right now we are having a very fast in mega or in gigahertz frequency range, but at that time it is 108 kilohertz. Now, after the technology change, that is when NMOS technology came into picture, we are having a second generation, and in that second generation the 8085 it come into picture, and it is invented in 1976. It uses 6500 transistors, and it performs the operation on 8-bit data. So with the speed of, or you can say the execution, or you can say the speed clock frequency that is used is in the range of 3 to 5 megahertz, or practically you can say if you are using an 8085 microprocessor, its clock frequency is 3.4 megahertz. So you need a crystal which will provide a frequency of 3.4 megahertz frequency to this 8085 microprocessor, as it is a digitally programmable synchronized device. So it needs a clock, okay, and it is of NMOS technology, and it is made up of 6500 transistors. Now the third generation is in 1978, the third generation, which uses HMOS technology, that is hybrid, and it is 8086 processor. This processor it will work on 16-bit data at a time. So if you compare 8085, 4004 and 8086, obviously the number of bits on which the data processing takes place, it is increasing. So you can say that whatever the task completed by 8085, that task will be completed by 8086 in less or half of the time, because it is processing that at double the data rate, okay. So for example, if we have to add a 2 16-bit number, then in that case 8085 requires it takes first 2 8-bit number, then it will add for second 2 8-bit numbers, but the same thing, same addition will be performed by 8086 in one cycle, or you can say because it is using 16-bit data at a time, okay. The frequency 4 megahertz, okay. So speed, that clock frequency is more or less same with 8085, but the processing, the data processing capability is enhanced in case of 8086. Next, fourth generation, that is Intel 80386. In 1985, SCMOS technology is there, and it is using 2,75,000 transistors are there used to design this 80386 processor. In between of 8086 and 386, there are many more, 80186, 286 and then 386, okay, and it is working at 32 megahertz frequency, 32 bit processor it is, and it is using 16 megahertz clock frequency. The fifth generation, or you can say the latest which we are using in our processor or laptop, that is dual core and quad core Celeron and Pentium processor, which are started from 1993, okay. These are using superscalar processing, that it is using memory management unit and pipelining architecture and all these things to process, to increase the speed, so that it can perform more machine cycle or more information to be processed at lower time or at faster rate, okay. So right now I think we all are using a processor either with 32-bit processor or 64-bit processor, and they are dual core and quad core. The dual core and quad core means there are two processor doing the task simultaneously, means the task is divided between two. Like if we are working in a team and we are 4 members in a team, so we and a task is come to us, then we divide that task into 4 modules, small module, and 4 of us will work together, and so that this task will be completed within less time. If a one person can do that task, it needs suppose 4 days to compute that task. Then if we we divide that task into 4 module and given each module to 4 of us, then that task will be completed in 1 day. So in this way, this quad core and dual core processor is working, so that it can process the data more faster, okay. And these processors are using 3.5 gigahertz clock frequency, and more than 10 million transistors are used to design this processors, whether it is dual core or quad core, and many more companies are there. Instead of Intel, there are many more, OSIS and all these are there to design different processors, Okay, so this is the evolution of microprocessor and their different types. The basic processor which is there in our study material, or which is the base line to understand the working and to understand more efficiently how this processor is going to work, is 8085 microprocessor, which is an 8-bit processor. Okay, and the next is the 8086 processor, which is a 16-bit processor. This 16-bit processor and 8085 processor, the basic difference between these two are that in 8086 processor we use a term known as pipelining, and another term that is known as segmentation. We will study this in next subsequent lectures, but these two mechanism help 8086 to work faster as compared to 8085. Okay. Now the as I told you, microprocessor is a digital device, digital circuit, programmable circuit. So we have to program our microprocessor. To program our microprocessor, we have to give some instruction to microprocessor. Now what this instruction means? Okay, so instruction is a bit pattern. Okay, so instruction is a bit pattern that instruct the microprocessor to perform some specific function. Like I instruct this remote to change the slide. I instruct this remote to change the line or to display the line. So in this way we can the instruction is a bit pattern which is given to microprocessor, because microprocessor uses digital circuit to perform any operation. It needs everything in bits, or you can say in electrical format. So instruction will be converted into bit pattern and it is given to microprocessor to perform some specific task. Now every microprocessor they have their own instruction set and it is provided us by manufacturer. So as a programmer, if I say when I choose any microprocessor to study it or to program it, then I have to refer the data sheet and their instruction manual for instruction set. Okay, and I use that instructions to write a program for that particular microprocessor. Now entire group of instructions, that instructions is known as instruction set, as I told you. So that instruction set consists of different instructions. For example, in case of 8085 microprocessor, if we take it as an example, in 8085 microprocessor we have 80 instructions, approximately 80, 74 to 80 instructions are there to program that microprocessor. So depending on my requirement, I can choose I can pick some of the instructions and I can write the program. And this instruction set will help me to determine how microprocessor's functionality, means how it will be performed and what task it has to be performed, what are the limitations of that particular microprocessor. Now instruction can be classified depending on the functionality, length and the operand addressing. So how I can define the instruction? So the instruction itself consists of two parts. Any instruction, it has two parts. One is opcode and one is operand. Opcode is nothing but, or you can say it is, if I can write it, it is operational code. Opcode is nothing but it is operational code. Okay. This operational code is in hexadecimal, as microprocessor can understand hexadecimal, or I can say binary number system. So operational code is in hexadecimal. This code will give instruction, or we can say this code will tell the microprocessor which task has to be performed, whether it has to perform addition, whether it has to perform subtraction or any other task, move, copying of data, anything. And the next term is operand. Operand is the data. Opcode is operational code, that is what type of operation has to be performed, and operand will be the data on which that operation has to be performed. For example, I have to add something, then I have to give the data. So that addition plus data, this both should be in that instruction itself. Okay. So, just I can show you, like for example, we can take an instruction add b. Okay. Whenever the addition has to be performed, okay, addition, we know this is the symbol we use for addition, and if I have to add something, we need two things, or we can say there are two operands or two data must be there, then only I can perform the addition operation. So, let us take, I have to add 56 and 64. Okay. I will add these two number and I will found that it is 10, 11, 20, 120 will be the result. So, I to any system I will give these two as a data 1 and data 2. I can see it is D1 and D2, and this is my result R. Okay. So, in case microprocessor, I want the microprocessors to perform this addition, then I have to instruct the microprocessor. So, the instruction will be this add B. I had just written this. This B is the place where one of the data is there. Okay, I can name D2 will be there also, we can take it. Now, where will be the D1? Okay. So, there are some instruction in which we can have a data directly. I can write an instruction like ADI 64H. In this, I had mentioned second data in the instruction itself. Okay. So, in this way, we can give an operand in the instruction. This is my opcode. This is my operand. And what is its significance of this instruction? That add immediately, ADI, add immediately the content 64H with the content of accumulator. That we will discuss it in later when we are going to have this move and data transfer operation or addition operation. In this case, the addition is performed with the content of B register. So, I have to first put this data into B register and then I have to perform the addition. Okay. So, in each instruction there are two things, one is operation code, that is opcode, and the another one is the operand or the data. Okay. There are different ways we can specify the data. So, that different ways how we can specify the data, that the data is where, the place where the data, from where the microprocessor will take the data. The different ways is known as addressing mode. Okay. So, addressing mode is the way by which we can instruct microprocessor that we can specify the data pattern, whether the data is in the instruction itself like this, that is immediate data, or we can say that data is in the register, this B is the register. So, we can say the data is in the register, or we can say indirect, that data is at third place, and microprocessor has to refer that place and takes the data from that place like this. Okay. All these instructions, whether it is ADI, add B, these instructions we can write as a programmer, we can write in a memory. Okay. Right now, I think you all are using high level language to write some of the code, whether it is Python or C, anything. In that you can write your program in a Word document or in a file. Okay. And you save that file with some extension and you give that file to the compiler. The compiler is the program which convert this Python or C++ or C language program into a machine code, or you can say assembly language. Okay. And that assembly language is then converted into machine code, that is that will be understood by microprocessor, and that machine code is stored in this memory. It may be 74 or 32, anything. Okay. So, this is the machine code, we will study it in later section, but this machine code is stored in memory and the microprocessor will go and read this data, that is the opcode or operand, from memory and perform the task. Okay. So, instruction is given to the microprocessor in the form of hexadecimal code. It is stored in the memory, and whenever we ask microprocessor to perform that task, microprocessor go and refer to the memory, takes the instruction one by one, fetch that instruction, that is the first process, then decode it, then execute it. So, for each instruction there are 3 cycles. One is fetch, that is fetching of instruction, taking that instruction, microprocessor takes that, the 74 takes into in microprocessor. Then in microprocessor there is an instruction register where this opcode is stored, microprocessor decode it, then microprocessor execute that instruction. So, these are the 3 steps, or you can say way each instruction get executed in any of the microprocessor: fetch, decode and execute. Okay. These are the 3 tasks for each instruction. First fetching will be takes place, then decoding and then executing. And as I told you, the pipelining means these tasks are done simultaneously, that fetching is done, then parallelly decoding is goes on, and then execution is goes on. But right now in our initial processors, first fetching is completed, then decoding, then execution. So, this is about the instructions. Now, the data transfer scheme, how data get given to the microprocessor. To perform some task, we have to give some data also. We have to assign the task as well as we have to give the data. So, there are different ways we can transfer the data between peripheral, that is input output device and microprocessor and memory, or memory and input output devices. And these transfer scheme is divided into following types. The first one is on the base of addressing of the device, how we are going to address our device. One is microprocessor, and now microprocessor has to takes the data from peripheral, that is input output device, or takes the data from memory. There are 2 sources, either it will takes the data from input device or from the memory. So, from addressing, how I am going to address my device. So, there are 2 methods. One is IO mapped IO. In this IO mapped IO, I am considering, or microprocessor is considering, input output device as an input output device, not as a memory unit, and it will assign an address to input output device separately, and takes the data from input device and gives our data to output device. Second method is memory mapped IO. In this method, what we can say, we can program, or manufacturer can do something like that. It will assign input output device as a memory unit, it will club it. Okay. So, in that case, we do not have a different memory unit and different input output device. We are having one set of unit, and which consists of both memory as well as input output device. Second classification is based on the program or the hardware involved. Okay. So, in this classification, first is program data transfer. So, here we can have 2 methods, one is polled method and one is interrupt driven method. So, in case of program data transfer method, microprocessor consider program, software program has to be written on the microprocessor. One method is polling method. In polling method, microprocessor goes and check each time to all the input device connected to it, whether a data is available, whether it has some data, whether keyboard is pressed, or whether mouse is there, or whether a remote is there. So, microprocessor go each time and check the device. In case of interrupt driven method, microprocessor perform its own task, and whenever a keyboard wants to give some data, or whenever a mouse we have to click, a interrupt is generated from input device or from an output device, and that interrupt will given to the microprocessor, and now microprocessor goes and check for the data. So, in case of interrupt driven, the microprocessor is busy with some other task. Whenever the interrupt occur, it will go and serve that interrupt. Next is direct memory access transfer. In this case, The when we have to transfer large amount of data, that when we have to use pen drive, we are using pen drive to transfer our data from hard disk of our processor, microprocessor, that is laptop or desktop, to our pen drive, the small secondary storage device. In that case, we are transferring a large amount of data from one place to another place. Such type of application, we in that case the DMA come into picture. It is a hardware, it is one IC, direct memory access DMA controller IC, which takes the control from microprocessor for some time frame and perform this transfer operation, data transfer operation. In DMA there are two methods, one is burst mode and one is cycle stealing transfer, or you can say burst mode, in which a small big amount of data is transferred in the in small packet, and in case of cycle stealing, in between of two operation a small amount of data is transferred. So next scheme, that is on based on method of data transfer, whether we have to transfer the data parallel data transfer or we have to transfer the data serially. When microprocessor has to transfer a data within a small range, that is within the PCB, that is printed circuit board, near to some another processor, or in that case we use for parallel data transfer, that is when microprocessor has to transfer data from memory to processor, or from secondary memory to processor, or the registers itself. In that case we go for parallel data transfer, that is simple data transfer and handshake mode. In this handshake mode, first some handshaking signals are transferred between two peripheral devices, and then data transfer takes place. These handshaking signals are used to check whether the device is ready for communication or not. In simple data transfer, the microprocessor will not check whether the data whether the other device is ready for taking the data or not. It will just transfer the data. But in that case, the second device is not ready to receive the data, that data will lost. So preferably we use handshaking mode, in which some handshaking signals are checked, that whether the device is ready, clear to send, whether the buffer is ready or something like that. So it will share the data. Next method is serial data transfer. This method is used when we have to transfer data over a long distance. That basically the drawback of parallel data transfer is that when I have to transfer data parallel, that 8-bit data, if I have to transfer, I need to 8 wires, each bit I need 1 wire. So in that case it will be a jungle of wires. So in that case, instead of that, we will go with serial data transfer, where we will transfer bit by bit. In case of serial data transfer, again we have two types: synchronous data transfer and asynchronous data transfer. In case of synchronous data transfer, both the devices uses one path to transmit their data and another part to share the clock, and both can operate at same clock frequency. In case of asynchronous data transfer, we use some start bit and stop bit, and we decide a frame, and we can transmit that frame, in that frame only our data. So then case of asynchronous, it is not required, another clock line is not required, so we can save another wire, and we can transmit only a data line over a single wire with some start and stop bit indicating a frame structure. Okay. So these are the method in which we can have a data transfer scheme for microprocessor or any communication device. Now the next topic is interrupt. What is an interrupt? I can define it something like that. Right now I am having this lecture, and within this lecture, if my phone ring, that is interrupt to my to me. Okay. So that interrupt, it depends on me whether I have to give service to that interrupt or not. Whether depending on the priority, I can decide whether I have to give service to that call, or I have to continue with my recording. Okay. So interrupt is a mechanism by which microprocessor is made to transfer a control from current program to another higher priority program. Okay. So microprocessor is performing some task. By the meantime, if a printer wants a service from microprocessor, that it wants some data to be get printed, then it can send an interrupt signal. But right now we are in different modes, that we are using only printer and when microprocessor wants to print something. But it will depend, if printer can be accessed by some another what you can say in a LAN network, then the server get interrupted by another device to take the control of printer. Okay, so in that case microprocessor, that particular server microprocessor has to suspend its task and give service to the printing option. Okay, so the program that is related to printer that is run by server, that program is known as interrupt service routine, because that program is run when a printer interrupt is occurred. Okay, so that program is known as interrupt service routine, and when that printing operation is completed, microprocessor comes back to its main document, whatever, if I have opened my PDF or I have opened my doc file, and in between a printer command is activated, then microprocessor go and serve that interrupt command and come back to PDF format. Okay. Now there are different classification depending on the how that interrupt is there. So first is based on maskability, that if I don't want or microprocessor thinks that that interrupt is not that much important, we can mask that interrupt. Okay. So by maskability there are two types of interrupt, one is maskable and another is non-maskable. So if we press, if our system get hang, we restart our system by pushing our start button. So that is a non-maskable interrupt. Whenever that button is pressed, microprocessor has to restart the system. Okay, but there are some keys, when we press it, microprocessor avoid that interrupt. Okay. Next is this classification of interrupt is based on interrupt vector address. Okay, so these interrupts are vectored, means whenever an interrupt occur, microprocessor has to reach a particular address location, that is vector address, and a program is written by a programmer at that address, and that program has to be executed. Some interrupts are non-vectored, means a specific address is not assigned to that particular interrupt, and programmer has to decide what action has to be taken after that interrupt has occurred. Third is based on the source. Based on the source means whether the interrupt is hardwired, means that is from external, or from internal, that is through program. So there are two types, software interrupts and hardware interrupts. Hardware interrupts, like I told you, that we have a start button, we can press that button and our system get restart. Software means through some programming instructions. The next topic is all about timing diagram. Right now, as I told you, the microprocessor can perform lots many operation, and to perform some operation, microprocessor, we give instruction to microprocessor, and the microprocessor needs some time to fetch that instruction, decode it and execute it. So fetching, decoding and execution, these three operations need some time, and this timing diagram gives us a graphical way to represent how that processing takes place in any microprocessor, or we can say it is a graphical operation, graphical show of the operation of any various digital circuit involved in the microprocessor. So in microprocessor, we can say the time taken by each instruction, it is given by a timing diagram. The terminology which we are using to draw or mention this timing diagram. So first is the T state. Okay, as I told you that microprocessor is a digitally programmable device, and it is a synchronized digitally programmable, so it needs a clock. So T stage is referred to as a time of one clock period. Okay, so if I told that my microprocessor is working at 1 megahertz clock frequency, okay, then 1 microsecond is the time period. So T is my 1 microsecond. So T states represent the 1 clock period. machine cycle. So as I told you, there are different machine operation that microprocessor has to perform: fetching, decoding, execution, and reading, writing, whether it is going to read data from memory or from input output devices, these machine cycles. So time taken by microprocessor to execute these machine operations is known as machine cycle. Or you can say machine cycle is nothing but a combination of T states, a group of T states. The third term related to timing diagram is instruction cycle. It is the time taken by any instruction or execution of any instruction, or so we can say that a single instruction is composed of many machine operation. Okay, so a group of machine operation will perform a single instruction, execution of single instruction. So for any instructions, basically there are two steps: fetch and execute. You can miss decoding operation because it is the internal operation of microprocessor. So fetch because it takes the data from memory, decode it, and now in case of execution it has again referred to either memory or input output device. So there are basically we can consider it's two way. So this timing diagram help us to understand more efficiently how this processor is going to execute any instruction which we are going to assign it. Okay, so this is all about timing diagram, and in this lecture we had covered about the evolution, instruction, data flow, data transfer, and timing diagram. Thank you. In next lecture I am going to cover about the basic microprocessor, that is 8085 microprocessor. We can refer the architecture and pin diagram for that 8085 microprocessor in the next lecture. Thank you.